Hello, and welcome to the episode of In the Trench with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we are joined by Jake Asman, host of the Jake Asman Show on YouTube, most recently known for drinking Hennessy on his post-game shows and drinking beer with Fireman Ed at 9 a.m. Jake's living his best sports life right now. Jake, thank you so much for coming on. How's it going, man?
Bubs, I'm doing great, and the Jets bye week I would say was quite successful,
Yep.
right? I know Fireman Ed and I maybe we got to do another
Yeah.
show and drink some more beers at 9 a.m. because I don't know, it worked, right?
Yeah.
You saw the Bills lose to the Patriots, which I guess is weird to kind of
Yeah.
root for New England, but that
Yeah.
was the scenario we found ourselves in yesterday, and then obviously Sunday Night Football, watching the Eagles take down the Dolphins was great as well. So awesome bye week, I think, if you're a Jet fan.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And I wanted to kind of start with that and our thoughts coming out of the bye week because you were spot on. It was weird yesterday rooting for New England and the Eagles, especially after we beat the Eagles last week. And it was just a weird feeling. But, being a fan for a day, it was certainly successful. And the New York Jets, everything went their way, including even teams like the Raiders and the Chargers losing as well, which, put them down deeper into the playoff conversation. But the AFC East now is wide open. Your thoughts on the New York Jets now coming out of the bye week? Their upcoming schedule, just your overall optimism around this team with now the division open and their playoff chances, which increase after the weekend.
So there's no doubt, you feel a lot better about
Yeah.
their playoff chances, but even before this day yesterday, where a lot of the results we covered went the Jets' way,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
way the Jets defense has been playing, the way they nearly beat the Chiefs, the way they have a win now over the Bills, they have a win over the Eagles. Like I looked at this team and felt like, you know what? This is a playoff team. Now, a lot of it is going to come down to the version of Zach Wilson we
Hmm.
get going forward, but they're going to have a chance against anyone. I think what yesterday does is maybe remind you, hey, let's not just rule out winning the AFC East. Well, it's still
Yeah.
unlikely. I looked at the odds before we sat down and did this podcast, Bubs. The Jets are about plus 1,000 to win the AFC East, but it's not the craziest thing in the world when you consider the
Yeah.
fact they already have a win over Buffalo. They match up seemingly well with Miami. The two times Miami's played a good team, a playoff team, they've lost, and their historic offense scored 10 points against the Eagles. Jets scored more than that.
Yeah.
Their unbelievable offense against the Bills, who seemingly played down to their competition. They played up
Hmm.
that day to the Dolphins. They only scored 20 in a blowout loss.
Yeah.
So I just kind of look at it and go, the AFC East is not totally out of the question. Obviously, I'm more focused on just get to the playoffs, and
Yeah.
that's a monumental achievement for this team that lost Aaron Rodgers on the opening drive of the year.
Yeah.
But it is a reminder, AFC East is not out of the question for the Jets, as crazy as that sounds to say.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you were spot on too with, the defense and how good they've been. And even with some of the slow starts, they've been so good, shutting out Philly last week. And something this defense didn't do very well last year was forced turnovers. They're doing that this year. And that's a big reason why they're finding ways to win this game. I wanted to start with Zach and the offense, and we'll shift back into the defense. Losing Aaron Rodgers 4 plays into the season. I know you were in the building that night. I was in the building last night. That night, it was devastating. It was just, you were wondering there, sitting there as a Jet fan, like, why us again? But Zach, look, and I think you've mentioned this a lot on your show. You look at him through a lens of a backup quarterback. He's been competent. I think we've seen improvement from him this season. It hasn't been drastic steps, but it's been enough for them to stay in the game, win the game with their run game led by Brees Hall and obviously their defense. What has been your thoughts on Zach, and what do you need to see for him to improve? Obviously, something that needs to improve is the red zone, and that could be a little bit coaching and Zach himself. But what do you need to see from Zach the rest of the way to give you more confidence for this offense and this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think it is the red zone. I
Yeah.
believe the Jets are 32nd in red zone
Yeah.
efficiency this year, and that's just not going to get it done. As
Mm-hmm.
great as this defense is, and it's kind of funny because I had a line on my show going into the Eagles game. Look, you're not going to beat the Eagles with field goals, and well, they
Yeah.
kind of did beat the Eagles with
Yeah.
field goals because of how just insanely
Yeah.
great the defense was that day for the Jets. But the defense, as great as they are, they're not going to force four turnovers every game, right? You're going
Mm-hmm.
to need to score some points, and when you kick field goals, you allow the other team, regardless who the team is, to hang around in the game. So red zone
Mm-hmm.
efficiency has to be better. It's never going to be great, I don't think, with this
Yeah.
quarterback, but if it could just be a little better. We're talking about the Jets probably having a couple wins here where they win by multiple scores, especially with the schedule coming up. So it starts there. They obviously have to be better on third down as well. And,
Yeah.
and that's on the quarterback as well. They also got to help Zach out. So I don't want to put it all on Zach. I think he's done a good job game managing, which was something that a
Mm-hmm.
year ago we couldn't even fathom him
Nope.
being able to do that. He was unplayable. It's how bad it was. And against that Patriot game, in that Patriot game, I should say, he was also unplayable. in that one. But he at least now looks like a capable backup in this league.
Hmm.
Is he ever going to be the number 2 pick in the draft and live up to that? Probably not, but he doesn't
Yeah.
need to be on this team. So if he could just be the 20th best quarterback in the league, even like the 24th best quarterback in the league, I think that's good enough with the team around him. So that's kind of what I'm looking to see from Zach. Like, continue to show improvements, take care of the ball, because that's the biggest thing, right? Tua last night turned the
Hmm.
ball over. That's why the Eagles were able to win. Zach didn't
Yeah.
turn it over against them, and that was the difference in the game. So play turnover free, and I just hope that as Zach's confidence continues to build, that he starts to, he continues, I should say, to improve as a quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. And as you mentioned, the red zone stuff has obviously got to be a lot better. And you talked about a little bit of the coaching. What also do you need to see more of Hackett? Because I've had my things with Hackett too. I don't love what he's done. Some of it's on Zach. It's a little bit half and half. What do you need to see out of Hackett the rest of the way?
Yeah, I think Hackett has to start getting the best personnel on the field,
Yeah.
meaning less Randall Cobb, more Xavier
Hmm.
Gibson. Sal is gushing earlier today about, well, Gibson's the reason why Hardman's not here. Okay, let's see him as
Yep.
an offensive player now. I know he was banged up going into that Eagles game, so the prevailing thought was, well, if he was fully healthy, we'd start to see him more in the slot as the number 3 receiver. We better start seeing that this Sunday against the Giants. So I think you
Hmm.
start with Gibson. I'd like to see Jeremy Ruckert play a lot more. Their efficiency as a passing offense and a rushing attack is much better when he is on the field. And not that CJ Uzama can't have a role, but I think we need to flip tight end 2 and tight end 3 around and have Ruckert be tight end 2 next to Conklin a lot more. And I also would like to see, Jason Brownlee perhaps get some
Yep.
opportunities here. Big body receiver can help you in the red zone. I think he's going to be activated, of course, for the first time on Sunday. And then,
Yep.
look, the Izzy Abanikanda
Yep.
opportunity should be coming. I mean, he's been inactive
Yeah.
every game. He flashed in the preseason. You're not getting
Cooked.
anything from Michael
Nope.
Carter or Dalvin Cook. It's time to either make Carter or Cook inactive and
Hmm.
give Izzy a chance to be the complement to Breeze.
I totally agree. And just quickly here before we move over to the defense side of football, what were your just quick thoughts on the whole McCole Hardman trade and that whole situation, the way it just kind of went up in dust or
You know,
flames?
yeah, it's disappointing. I'm not
Hmm.
going to overreact and say how could they
Yeah.
do this? Oh, same old. Like, he signed a 1-year, $4 million
Yeah.
deal. Let's calm down. It's not it's not this horrific thing that occurred. This is not giving J.C. Jackson the bag like the Chargers did and having to trade him
Hmm.
a year into that deal. So let's settle down. But it is disappointing they couldn't find any role for him. On one hand, I understand that Gibson did take his role. I
Yeah.
get that. But Mecole Hardman can't play at all over Randall Cobb. Not even like making Cobb,
Yeah.
a player who goes from 20 snaps to 0. But you can't find 5 or 6 plays a game for Mecole Hardman to have the opportunity to get the ball in his hands and do something. So it's disappointing. I'm not going to overreact. I do think, though, Bubbs, if there's a trade deadline move coming, I think the Jets need to seriously consider finding a
Hmm.
way to add a receiver.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So once again, we're talking to Jake Asman here, host of the Jake Asman Show. We're moving on to the defensive side of the football, which has certainly been the strength of the team. And I want to go to 2 players specifically that are having breakout seasons, and that's Quincy Williams and Bryce Huff. We'll start with Quincy Williams alongside his brother Quinnen, obviously. 87.1 coverage grade this season, 84.1 overall grade. Him and Quinnen were actually the first brothers since 2010 to force a turnover in the same game last week against Philly. What have been your thoughts from Quincy Williams this season? Really has turned into one of the better linebackers in the NFL.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable. I mean, you talk about this defense going from, a very good unit last year.
Mm-hmm.
We could debate if they were elite or whatnot, but,
Yep.
one of the things that they have been able to do is absolutely get the most out of this guy. You talk about a
Mm-hmm.
developmental player. I mean, this guy was, brought in off waivers at the beginning of the 2021 season, and his development from like a guy who'd make a play here or there. Sometimes he'd miss tackles or he'd be in the wrong spot to where he is now, where he's not only just good in the running game, but he is good in the passing game too. I mean, his coverage skills have improved. His ability to understand where to be to make the big play is improved. I mean, he's playing like one of the best linebackers in the league right now, and
Mm-hmm.
you certainly can make the case on a team that has 2 first-team All-Pros on defense and a second-team All-Pro at linebacker in Mosley. You can make a case that he's been their best overall defensive
Yep.
player. So, I mean, Quincy's been just phenomenal. I already ordered the jersey during the bye week, so
Yeah.
I'm excited to get that one in.
Yeah, that extension's looking really good right now for Joe Douglas. Obviously, the 3-year deal that he signed in the offseason. And moving on to Bryce Huff, I mean, this guy is just dominant. I mean, the way his speed off the line, his ability to get every time he's on the field, he's making an impact. We talked about him last year in the limited snaps that he played. Every time he was on the field, he'd barely play, but he'd make an impact. Your thoughts on Bryce Huff? 33 pressures, 28.9% pressure rate, first in the NFL. Those 33 pressures right near the top as well. I mean, this is a guy that we have to start talking about across the league, needs to get attention and needs to be talked about against some of the best, most fierce pass rushers, edge rushers in football.
Yeah, he's been incredible. And, on a team, once again, with how many guys that are first rounders on
Yep.
that defensive line, here's a guy who's an undrafted free agent who's perhaps their best pure pass rusher. In fact, I think he is. And, he's starting to make a name for himself. You have J.J. Watt shouting him out last week.
Yep.
People are well aware who Bryce Huff is, and that's going to be someone the Jets need to keep at all costs. So, it'd be nice if they could have gotten an extension done during the bye week. I wonder if they attempted to. But that's a guy who's been incredible. And Quincy, Bryce Huff, taking the steps they've taken this year, major reason why this defense has done what it's done. Jermaine Johnson as well in year two,
Yep.
getting more playing time. He's blossoming into a very good player as well. It's just really exciting to see this defense go from a good unit last year to very good to really taking that next step. The great defenses in the league come up with the big stops when you need to, and they force turnovers, and the Jets have done that as well as any defense in the league so far. They have the best second half defense in the sport. The adjustments are phenomenal by Ulbrich at halftime. So I think there's a lot to really like about where this team is headed here coming out of the bye week.
Yeah, you mentioned the extension with Bryce Huff. Do you feel that's something that gets done during the season, almost like JFM 2 years ago, or do you feel it's something that Douglas hopefully takes care of once he eventually hits free agency in the offseason?
Yeah, look, I think if it was going to get done, it probably would have
Probably
happened
by
already
yep.
at the bye week, but it doesn't mean you can't, still sign him. Bryce Huff might just want to bet on himself at this point. He's like, I've already made it this far. I'm having a great year. Let me just go out there and let me finish my season and then find out in the open market what my value is. Now, there's risk in that if you're the Jets. Like, you're going to be able to keep this guy. But, the one thing I think we know about Joe Douglas is he values trench play. So I think he's going to do everything in his power to keep this guy. And you can't keep everyone. We understand that. But this is the guy you got to keep.
Yeah, I totally agree. They need to hang on to him, and he's been one of the best in football, and he's so exciting to watch and brings a ton of energy. Back to linebackers really quickly before we get on to just two more questions before we get out of here. Mosley and Quincy Williams, where would you rank them right now among linebacker duos in football?
They got to be near the top, right?
Top,
I
yeah.
mean, obviously the Niners have, their two guys in Greenlaw and what's his name was obviously incredible, Fred Warner. So, I feel like those guys might be the gold standard. But, I mean, when you're ranking linebackers in the league as far as linebacker duos, I mean, it'd be hard to find two guys that are playing as well as C.J. Mosley and obviously Quincy are right now.
Yeah, definitely. So two quick questions here to close things out. Number one, your early predictions. It's only Monday. A lot of injury stuff has to come out. We heard earlier today, DJ Reed, Sauce, both in protocol. Hopefully they come out of it and they'll be ready to go for Sunday against the Giants. What is your early prediction and thoughts going into this week's game against the Giants?
Yeah, my early thoughts are that the Jets are the better team,
Yep.
and they should win this game. Now, what concerns me is they're coming off a bye. Are the Jets going to be a little rusty? We know they've had issues in the first half all year, so is that going to be something that plagues them? You don't want to give the Giants confidence they can win this game. And while, I think the Jets are the better team, it still is Jets-Giants, and the Jets are playing with their backup quarterback. Now, the Giants might be playing with their backup QB as well, but from what I've seen from Tyrod, he might be a better fit
Yeah.
for where the Giants are right now because Daniel Jones holds on to the ball for a long time, and Tyrod comes in. He's a pro. He runs their offense. I think we're making too much of what he's done. Like they scored 14 points yesterday. They scored 9 against Buffalo. So we're going to calm down a little bit. But I think the Jets got to play a clean game, and they should win. They should be able to run the ball effectively with Brees. I think Brees is going to be motivated to be the best running back in New York after this game.
Yep.
And, it's one of those things I look at and go, if the Jets are who we think they're about to be, like this is a team that despite losing Aaron Rodgers and Vera Tucker and beating the Eagles without Sauce and DJ Reed, this is a game you win. Salah's 0-2 coming out of the bye week. Now, both those games were against New England. This time it's the Giants. There's going to be, plenty of motivation for Salah to play into that card, be the best team in New York, whatever. The Jets got to win this game. They're the more talented team, and if Zach doesn't turn the ball over, I think the Jets win. It's probably going to be closer than we want because that's the Jets, and they seemingly can never have like laughers. But I do think the Jets are in position to win this game, and you get the 4-3. You start thinking about winning that game, get the 5-3. Then you go to Vegas against who knows who's playing quarterback then for the Raiders. You get it's all in front of them. But if they lose this game to the Giants, it's gonna feel very same old Jets like. So they got to get it done.
Yeah, it's always these games where the Jets, where you have all the confidence in the world, and then they just love to bring you down. But look, the
Yep.
reality is, I don't want to sound too cocky, but this team has shut down Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts. I'm not extremely afraid of Tyrod Taylor, but that's just me. I believe this defense. I trust this defense. One more question. I'm rocking the Rodgers jersey right now. Do you have any? Do you have a feeling, or do you believe that Aaron Rodgers will come back this season? In my brain, I'm playing the idea of, oh, he comes back 3 games left, wins out, goes to the playoffs, makes a run. He's on going down the Canyon Heroes a couple weeks later, and the New York Jets are Super Bowl champions. Do you believe Aaron Rodgers comes back? Do you believe it's real? Is it just kind of the media maybe playing it up? I mean, he's obviously spoke on it a lot with McAfee, and be on Peyton and Eli tonight. What are your thoughts on Rodgers? Do you see him coming back 2023?
Yeah, you know what? If you asked me this 2 weeks ago, I would have said no way.
Yeah.
But you see him walking around without a boot. He talks about how he's rehabbing nonstop. He's got the best doctors and the best sports people around him, sports therapists around him. We can't say it's impossible. It's at least a conversation. I mean, look, is he going to come back Christmas Eve and play the last 3 games of the year? I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But is it the craziest thing in the world if he's the starting quarterback January 7th in New England or January 15th in the wild card round? I guess saying it out loud, it's crazy because it's never been done before. But as he would say, just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't happen. And it's his non-plant leg. He is a quarterback, so he doesn't need to be as explosive as a guy like Cam Akers was as a running back who did it in 5 months. If Rodgers did it in 4, I mean, it'd be unbelievable. But I mean, at least there's like a path to it based on how well he's moving. So I wouldn't bet on it, but I'm not going to sit here and say there's no chance, no way. Like, this guy's an alien, man. So it's at least a conversation, and the fact that we could have this conversation is awesome. But the only way this conversation continues is really not even about Rodgers. It's about the Jets. Like, if the Jets fall out of it, they're not going to bring him back. So they got to keep winning, and I think it's a great motivator for this team to see that guy working as hard as he is to come back. I think it kind of rallies the troops, so to speak, unites the locker room even more than they already are. Mm-hmm. So I think it's all good seeing Rodgers' commitment to this football team, even if he ends up not making it back.
Yeah, especially just his impact around the team. As you mentioned, every time he's been around this team, they played well. Took Kansas City to the final couple minutes. They beat Philly when he was in attendance. I mean, he's out there throwing footballs to Sauce just 5 weeks removed. It was crazy to see that. I mean, it would be crazy if he goes into New England, beats Belichick, punches our ticket to the playoffs. I mean, we can dream and think. We'll see. But again, as you mentioned, Jets got to handle their business. They've got winnable games in front of them. Can't let this year get like last year where they fall apart in the second half. So to close things out here, tell everybody where they can find you, all the great stuff that you're doing, and all the content that you got coming up this week as well, leading into the Giants game.
Sure. Every day you could hear some Jets talk on YouTube. You just search Jake Asman, and it will come right up. And I'll be on ESPN New York this upcoming Sunday night on 98.7 ESPN from 9 p.m. to midnight. So right after Jets-Giants, we'll be talking all about the game that night on ESPN New York. So looking forward to that, and should be a hell of a week, man. The Jets got to win. We feel good about the Jets, but now they got to go out there and they got to win this game this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah, totally. I would love a just nice old-fashioned blowout, 27-3, something like that. Defense dominates. Take care of business against the crosstown rivals and get to 4-3 on the season. That's another episode of In the Trench with Gangrene. Jake, I thank you again so much for coming on. Really enjoyed this. Stay tuned. A lot more content coming your way. As always, hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening.